Is Nomsa here at Ngosi Talk Shows. Find your own voice, lead from within. With me today, I have Carol Ann Cooper. How are you, Carol Ann?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm good, thank you very, very much. Just surviving half term with the kids. As you know, you've had them. You had the younger ones before.
Yeah, and it's not just half term, is it? It's summer holidays.
I know.
So
6
it's
weeks
longer
of
than half
holidays.
term.
Yeah, I'm happy to have them. I'm not complaining, God forgive me. So I'm just surviving. When I go live, it has to be one of the days. So our topic today is striving in the storm, how to overcome a relationship dissatisfaction. So the original topic that Carol Ann chose was navigating the storm, overcoming relationship dissatisfaction together. So Carol Ann, I'm gonna let you explain the topic because you chose this topic. And normally when someone chooses the topic, there's a motivation behind it or there is a story behind it. Could you please explain to our audience the story behind this topic, navigating
the choice of this, yeah. Okay, thanks, Nomsa. Yeah, I was just looking through some notes about relationships, about writing, and to sort of find a topic for today. And literally the word dissatisfaction, even I can't say it now, dissatisfaction just jumped out at me. And it was like, yeah, it resonated, dissatisfaction within a relationship. And how many people are dissatisfied? They're not fully happy, but they don't actually do anything about it. They let it go on. And I know I was dissatisfied with my relationship within my marriage for a long time. But it just seemed to be something that I ignored, really. It became comfortable in its uncomfortableness. You know, it was a niggle. It was there. I sort of knew I wasn't happy, but then we'd have times of great happiness. And so it sort of got pushed to the back. So it never really got addressed. And the thing is, if you don't address that dissatisfaction, that's what can then take you down the path of just the whole relationship falling apart. So I thought it'd be a great topic to explore. What are the steps? How can you overcome that dissatisfaction together? You know, because it is possible to do it together. Working with it, but if at the end of the day you decide it's not working, then that's another avenue and another option. But it's actually deciding you're going to do this together. So there are some steps that could take, and that's what I'd like to explore today. So that's where that came from. You know, that sort of went, yeah, that word dissatisfaction of a relationship went ping, 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 ping. It's like, yes, I was quite dissatisfied, but I didn't do anything about it. And yeah, I was married for almost 24 years. And I knew my ex-husband a couple of years before we even got married. So it's going to help me to sort of unravel a bit. Well, what perhaps could I have done? What didn't I do? What were the flags? What was happening? So I can just sort of allow that to just disintegrate and move into the past. And it happened. There's no point dwelling on, well, I should have done this or I should have done that, and oh, I should have known better. That's not helpful. And that's where you go, no, it's about just looking at it, blowing off the cobwebs, and then just laying it to rest and just declare it's complete and bring myself into the moment. And that's really what people can do. It's about bringing yourself into the moment now and moving forward with the relationship you have, with the relationships you have, and feeling happy, bringing that happiness in. So what were your thoughts when you saw the topic?
My thoughts are with regarding relationship in this world, because this world is a very fast-paced world now with our generation. When I saw the topic and just seeing the word dissatisfaction, I realized that nowadays we don't have patience. When we are not satisfied in a relationship, we want out. It's not easy to actually speak to somebody, to your spouse, and try to actually to lay down the groundwork of positive change. Or emotionally, if we are disconnected, or just to communicate the things that to communicate the things that can actually help us to achieve the results that we want. Is either the other person, they will be like, there is nothing wrong in a relationship, but knowing that there is something wrong in a relationship, or a man will say, mostly it's men that even if there is something wrong in a relationship, they will say, or why do you believe that there is something wrong or anything? But sometimes it's nice, if you want to overcome, if you're not satisfied in a relationship, to be as honest as possible. So that's what came out when I saw the topic that our audience, hopefully, if there is someone who is in a relationship, like you are saying, Carol Ann, that in your past relationship, you feel that there could have been things that you would have done to make changes that you didn't. We all feel that way. I feel that way as well. So, yeah. So I'm sure there are some people that feel that way. If you're somebody who is watching and you feel the same as well, don't be ashamed to just write down or comment, and we love to hear from you. Yeah, so it's I think it's very, very important as well, if you are not satisfied, to actually lay down. When we're talking about satisfaction, we talk about the realistic problems. There are some problems that are fantasy, where people, they watch romantic movies and then they expect their relationship to roll that way, like romantic movies. It doesn't work like that, I'm afraid. We are real people, really human beings. So real movies is an entertainment. Romantic on the movies is an entertainment. So the romantic party in life, it happens in real life, but it's a big, big foundation. Relationship is so big. The foundation and the roots, to be able to plant the foundation and the roots, is just big. So you have to, when we look about dissatisfaction, people are not satisfied, we have to look in a big, big environment of what the cause, the beginning of the relationship. Or sometimes the people might not be satisfied. You may find that like they're not satisfied with the interest when they hang out, or just maybe sex or anything. You just lay it out there. Over to you, Carol Ann.
Absolutely. There's a lot, as you say, there's a lot there. And in this world, you say, it's become quite fast paced. So it's keeping up, and things can get lost in there within that fast pacedness of the world. And it's about being able to slow down, recognize where you've got certain expectations that aren't being met. So the first step is actually to identify and wake up to what's the nature of the dissatisfaction. What is happening for you? And actually acknowledging that you're not happy. it's something you need to do for yourself. Acknowledge you're not happy. What is the dissatisfaction that's there? What's happening that could have caused it? You know, there's communication that's broken down. There's conflicts that are not getting resolved. They're just getting brushed under the carpet. There's maybe your own emotional needs are not being met. And very often it's that, again, we just sort of go, oh, never mind. It's recognizing where our needs aren't being met. And then, you know, the red flags that bring that to the fore is, are you having constant arguments? Is there maybe some distance between you? And do you actually feel lonely within that relationship? Because you can have a whole host of people around you and still feel lonely. So it's identifying for you what is the nature of the dissatisfaction, what is going on for you. So you need to actually identify that first, because until you do that, you can't move forward. Because if you keep pushing it away, then you're compounding it. You're not opening up space to be able to explore it. Maybe just write it down. Draw yourself a picture, something that represents what is the dissatisfaction, without judging it, without making it wrong. It's just acknowledging what is so for you right now. Because then you can go on to the next step after that. What do you think, Nomsa?
I love it, Carol Anna, when you say, basically what you're saying is self-reflection and unrevealing personal triggers like red flags, that you have to recognize the self-reflect without making it wrong or without judging yourself. We are actually... it's easy for somebody to judge themselves when they are in a position where they are not satisfied with something. The first thing I've had women saying, it is my fault, or they date the wrong person, they say I should have known better, or the men who will say it is my fault that I dated the wrong person, or that something happens in a relationship. And when you ask questions, they're like, it is my fault. I should have known better. I shouldn't have dated the person, or I knew the relationship wasn't going well, but I continued anyway. So the question that I always ask is, how does that make you feel when you blame yourself? Because at the end of the day, before we can amend the relationship, or before we can move on to find another relationship, if it is broken or whatever happens, you have to embark on that journey of self-discovery. That's where, Carol Ann, you say you need to actually reflect and not blaming yourself or judging yourself. And the experiences as well through that relationship. And also you have to explore the insecurities, the fears, because the insecurities shape our behavior within that relationship. So if we have these insecurities and fears that we have not dealt with, is going to affect the relationship that we are in. So instead of blaming ourselves, we have to address the situation, and we have to, when you address something, you cannot lead in greatness in a relationship if you have fear. So first we have to address the fear. What do we fear in that relationship? Or maybe if it is we are not satisfied, why are we not satisfied? Why do we feel that we are not satisfied? Then first, before we can go and blame somebody else, we need to search within ourselves the roots of why we're feeling the way we feel, what triggers, why do we behave the way we behave. Is it our past experiences, or is it self-love? Sometimes it could be so many things, because it's easy to go and blame ourselves, or it's easy to go and blame somebody else. And while sometimes the problems is a simple problem. So we find that, or sometimes we might think that there is a problem, why there isn't. So it's actually is easy. It's actually really, really easy if you look at yourself. If you have storms in your relationship, the only thing that I always do myself is I check on myself first. I check with me first. Is there anything that I can do to make things better for me within myself, to be happy? And if there is anything that I can change within myself, emotionally, physically, self-love, confidence, fear-wise, if I can face my fear, I do that without blaming myself. Or if there is anything with my spouse that I see that it can actually, if it needs improvement for both of us, that it can actually help us both improve, I'll lay it on the table. Or sometimes what I do is I pray about it before confronting my spouse. I pray about it and I ask God to intervene. And sometimes I find myself, when I'm in the middle of the prayer, asking God to intervene, whatever I need to sort out with him, he will come to me and say, I think we need to do this. And I'm like, okay, hallelujah, God. In my heart, I'm saying, thank you, God. So whatever your beliefs that might be, you don't have to blame yourself when things are not working out, or sometimes it might be work. Like myself, sometimes I have an office and sometimes I work from home. Like now the kids are at home. I work at home when the kids are at home. So I have to, then when everybody's at home, when it's time to take a break, it's time to have a family, I work if you go to my office hours, I work 9 till 5. So if 5 o'clock comes in, I got to be out of the computer. So it is something, because sometimes it can interrupt with the family. But then if I'm working at home, sometimes if somebody calls me, if I have to do something, my family knows that I'll log in onto the computer and just do something quickly and get out of it. So sometimes it could be all these little things that we take for granted that bring dissatisfaction in people's lives. Working, being addicted to work, not being able to separate work from home with work, family life with work. So those are the small, simple things that can cause dissatisfaction in relationship. What do you think, Carol Ann?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There are lots of little things. And the thing is, if you don't recognize them, so the little things are the things we tend to just ignore. So it's recognizing them. And as you say, it's bringing it out, understanding them. And some signs could be that you tend to be putting family and friends as a priority.
Yep.
And even work as a priority over your relationship. Other interests take a priority. So it's like, where's your priority shifted to? And maybe there's no dedicated nights for yourselves. You're so on sort of like parallel lives. There's no time or space given for you to really be together. And so certainly what you're saying is that next step in terms of identifying what is the root causes, what are the patterns, and blaming yourself. It's my fault. I should have known better. Okay. Recognize that that's what you're saying, And then just go, okay, it's not about blame. It's about acknowledging what is so. This is what's happening now. What didn't I learn from the past? What is it I'm repeating? And what am I actually getting out of this? Because there will be what's called a secondary gain. So there will be something you're getting from it, but it's not actually healthy. And it's not giving you the satisfaction that you really, really seek. So look at the behaviors. Is there outside stressors like work, maybe finances? And again, sometimes work, finances add in extra stress, extra pressure, but you're giving that the focus and allowing that to take over. So it's looking at it. What is the causes? What are the patterns? What are some deeper, maybe family patterns, things that have happened in a childhood? Start looking at that, acknowledging that for yourself. It's not about looking for your partner and going, oh, well, he had a bad, childhood and things weren't working for him. And I think that's where the mistake I made was looking more to my partner. He did have quite a mixed upbringing. He had some things that happened for him that he wasn't happy with. And we were always looking, in a sense, to blame that. There was the excuse. I never looked at anything that was there for me that maybe I was creating or putting into it or not doing that would actually support getting through it in a different way. It's like we seem to perpetuate the same cycle. We would have an argument, we wouldn't talk for days, maybe a week, and then we'd start talking again and we'd be planning, excited, but we were always in the future. And I could always feel in the pit of my stomach that something's not quite right. This isn't quite what I want. But I'd get swept away in that joy of, okay, yeah, we can plan, we can work towards this. So we were never in the present. So first of all, it's look to yourself. And what are some things that are going on? Is there a repeat pattern that's happening? Is there something you should have known? And I use that word should, because you didn't actually pick it up before. And it's okay, it's not going, oh, well, I should have done it. It's just acknowledging, okay, I should, I could, but I didn't. What could I now do? Just shift that emphasis. And also recognize, are you blaming? Is there that finger pointing? You're doing this to me, it's your fault. And the blame is there. Rather than maybe acknowledging there's something here that you're doing that is perpetuating it or creating the arguments, stress, because there's dissatisfaction in you and you're not actually addressing it. So look for what's happening. What's your insecurity? Trust. I love what Stephen Covey says, actually. Trust is the glue of life. It's the most essential ingredient in effective communication. It's a foundational principle that holds all relationships. And I know even as much as I said, yes, I trusted my ex-husband, deep down, I didn't. There was that distrust that was a niggle in the background, and I never addressed it. So I was constantly looking for, is he what he's saying right? Even though, and I would go, yeah. So it's looking at that little niggle and acknowledging it to start with. The next step is then actually looking at what part of that is looking at what are the triggers. What is it that triggers you? What triggers him or your partner? But what triggers you? What triggers that? Oh, that dissatisfaction. And go, okay, what triggers the anger, stress, the distancing that's happening? So look for the triggers, identify them. And then it's about communication. Communication is key to it all. But there's ways of communicating. And firstly, there's listening. And when I say listening, it's about actively listening. It's not just hearing what they're saying, it's listening without anything going on up here where you're wanting to then respond. You're trying to work out what you're going to say. You're listening. And over the years, since I've been divorced, I've learnt what that really means, to listen with an empty head. There's an activation. There's what is active? What is actually happening is that you are not just hearing the words, but you're taking them in, you're processing them. You're hearing them in here, and it's like, oh, so you're actively listening and being with that person. What is it they're actually saying? And being able to just not take anything personal. They might start there, oh, you're doing this to me, or I it's like, it's your fault, or it's, you've done this to me, you've made me angry. If you can just listen and be present, but also recognize, does it create something in you? It's like, oh, and you feel yourself go down. It's like, okay, make a note of it, because there's a source of dissatisfaction. Because what you can then say, your communication can change, because rather than going, yes, but you've done this to me, and all of a sudden it all blows up and you're angry at each other and you're blaming each other. It's just being able to say, well, for me, this is how I feel. What you've just said has made me feel, I'm feeling this. And it's not about you made me feel this way. What you've said, what you've done has made me feel. It's not you. You see here the difference. It's not the person. It's their action. It's their behavior. It's what they've said. And if you can get that finer distinction in the communication and stand in that, and if they come back with, oh, no, it's all my fault, and you said I've done this, I said, no. Be clear. Be able to find that way of communicating. But also just put yourself in your partner's shoes. It isn't just all about you, but it's about, as I say, it's that listening. It's putting yourself in their shoes. How has your actions impacted them? What are they actually saying? And as hard as it may be to acknowledge that, okay, if you've done something that upset them, it's actually been able to acknowledge that and go, okay, so this is what's happened. This is how it's impacted them. What was going on for me that had me behave this way? And so it's been able to really talk it through and dance, find a way of dancing in the communication, in the conversation. That is key. And that's the biggest hurdle for most people to get over. Because I certainly didn't know how to dance in a conversation back then. Again, it's something I've learned. And so again, it's recognizing where you're struggling and how you can move forward. So next step, so step 2 is identify the root causes and the patterns. Step 3, communication. Look at your communication. What do you think, Namsa?
I am muted, no muted. I love that, Carol Ann, when you say identify the nurturing effective communication, because that's very, very important to actually communicate. And communicating skills are very, very important. They are the critical component of how a relationship is able to move forward. And also you mentioned listening, and mastering listening is very, very, very important. And in a relationship, and also the meaning of connection. When you connect with somebody, that's why when I talk about a relationship, I always say to my clients, when you speak to somebody, you need to relate to their story. Whenever you want to build a relationship, you need to relate to somebody's story. Once you relate to that person's story, you sympathize with them. Once you sympathize with them, then the connection is made. Because if I'm in a relationship with you, it means you are connected to my world. My world is my story. So if you cannot connect to my world, it means it's my family, is my bloodline, is where I come from, is my culture, is everything, my values, my beliefs. So if we are not connected in that world, how will you be able to relate to my story? I was talking to Kayla's dad the other day. His dad, I took him for a walk. And then when I'm taking him for a walk or something happens, his friend, when somebody has got mental health problems, he sees his friends and he says all the times, let's go to this place, and then they go. And they were saying, you should have stopped him. I said, why the word I should have? I said to them, listen, whatever you guys think, when somebody has mental health problems, you will never, ever treat him like a child. Whatever you do in life, I said to them, whatever you do in life, never, ever think somebody is a child because they're not able to make decisions for themselves. You should always make a decision based on their desires, based on what they want. He wanted to go to the bank, so we went to the bank. Even if we talk rubbish to the cashiers, to me, I'm honoring his belief, I'm honoring his desires. So I took him there. But when I took him there, something happens. I always tell you, like, God is show me anyone that is in my life not for our own benefits. So something happens. His friend is started, now we are in the bank with his friends, and then his friends wanted him to access his bank account. So I'm sitting there, I'm very quiet, and I was like, what is going on here? So actually the bank staff, they're asking him questions. My father-in-law, he can't answer the questions. And his friend is like getting angry why he hasn't got his bank card. Why? I was like, actually, I took my father-in-law for a walk, not for me to be in this situation. So I was like, let me just see how this, when sometimes God expose fake friends. So this guy now is bad-mouthing his children, my father-in-law's children. So I go quiet. So in the end, the bank manager is called and they want to answer him the question. So I say, listen, this is David Roddy, my father-in-law, his name. And I was like, you can't ask him any questions. He hasn't got an ID. He could be an imposter. So I'm not with him. So he could be an imposter. So the rules of the bank says if you don't have any sort of identity, you cannot access your details. So I said to them, why are you trying to access his bank details? He hasn't got an identity. This guy is a friend. He is not a family member. He's bad mouthing his children. So I said to the bank, I will report you guys for what I'm witnessing right now. That my father-in-law hasn't got his bank, his identity. I had his identity. I didn't have my phone or anything. I left my phone behind anyway because we're just going for walk. So I said to them in the end, listen, the man has not got his identity. He has not got anything. So why can't you just do it some other time? He doesn't need money. We're going for walk. So, and then after this thing, it has unfolded. And then I'm looking back now when I was living in his house. Something just came out of my head. I don't know. I was finishing prayer and something just went download his app, his bank app to your phone. So I downloaded his bank app. So I started managing his finances just to make sure what is coming out, because what is going in is got loads of money. So then I did that and I took over everything. So his children, they thought everything was under control. And at the time, I didn't know that I was protecting his money. So now I'm looking back and I was like, that was actually a spirit that was guiding me through to actually take everything, because I started setting up everything and I took everything, his password and everything. I started monitoring what was coming out. And I said to him, I'm actually going to check who is taking the money out, what is goes in. So, and that was the time. And when everything was unfolding, and these were the people, he was going out every day to spend money. And now everything is unfolding. And I'm like, what is going on here? I was like, okay. And then I come home, so I make a video and tell these guys what I've witnessed, and they're all telling me off about why did you take him to the bank? And I was like, you guys are having a laugh. I have just discovered that your dad would have been wiped out of all his money on his bank account. And if we actually did not take over his finances, because this guy was, so the reason why I'm sharing this is sometimes, when we communicate, when it comes to relationship, there's so much judgment. People, they judge so much. And when I realized that moment that they are actually judging me, and I was like, actually, I was defending you guys. Do you know how much I sweat I had to I'm fasting and I'm not allowed to argue with people, but I had to say, God, at this moment, I'm going to have to tell these people off. And I was actually defending you guys. I'm on your side. And you were like, oh, okay. And but for me, because I witnessed it and I'm in a relationship with his son, and I have never thought that way about his finances, or if anyone like his children, they want to help him. To me, I've watched him going down, but I now watched him, his family, his children fighting on his side. I've never seen a friend. And I was like, I've never seen you in a hospital. This man has been in a hospital for a long time. His children have struggled to find time fitting in with work and visiting hours. I have never seen a friend actually coming to see him. And now you're getting involved with finances. Why? But that is what happens sometimes in relationship, that finances can interfere. Friends can interfere with the relationships. And at that moment, it made me realize, and I was like, this man, his children, only his children and his siblings that have been on his side by him, nobody else. And I was like, Why is he being so horrible? So sometimes in relationship, we face all that. But when I was explaining to the children, they all went to judgment first. So and I was like, okay, it's fine. But then it was later on, and I was telling his son off, and I was like, do you realize how much I had to actually argue with it? I had to point at the bank manager and said, listen, the rules, your rules say enter the bank, have identity. You're questioning him. He could be an imposter. I pointed at my father-in-law and said, it could be an imposter. And I was like, sorry, David. It could be an imposter. So those are the things that we face in a relationship, family issues, and also people who are fake, who are not really friends, who are fake. And I came out, I was shocked, and I was like, his older son, he works really far. Sometimes there were times where he just calls and say, no, sir, and the doctor needs him. He's always there for him, but he's far. And watching this man, he's actually disrespecting him. And I was like, no one disrespect my family. So I had to actually step in and say, no, you don't do that. So those are the things when we say navigate the storm in a relationship. There will be people that you think, and these people, I respected them, Carol Annie, as his friends. But then when I realized actually, he seems to know he seems to know the balance of his bank account. He has 2 bank accounts, and he seems to know the big money that he has and the small money that he has. And I was shocked. I was like, I have friends, but I don't know their balance in the bank. So I look back, Carol Ann, and I said, I thank God that, sometimes you pray, but you don't realize the prayer, what it does. And I was like, actually, the message, because I was sitting in his house, and then it was like an angel, like a guidance, like to take control of his finances. At this minute, he needs help. And all of a sudden, the bank actually, when I called them to say I need to set up an app for him, they were like helping out and everything. And I was like to pray to say, God, please help me not to be tempted with his money as well. I had to fast because otherwise money is tempting. Yeah. So I had to put up a prayer out there to say, let me genuinely from the bottom of my heart help this man. And his son, I said to him, and he goes, he's fine, he's going to take control. I was like, no, he needs help. So I had to take control. And then when he got really ill, I had to ask his older son to say, listen, now I think you have to take control of his finances. But he never touched anything. His older son, and his finances is still there. And here's his friend is coming and disrespect. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
When we talk about storm, you will have people that will interfere in your relationship. You will have people that will come and control your life. So that's why the roots are important to actually work on those roots, because sometimes we think people, they are acting on our best interest, but they're not.
Yeah, that's right. You just don't know. And well done for actually spotting that and being guided. And do you actually have power of attorney now?
Oh, his son, he is, but not in the bank. They've not. And then that's when the bank manager,
if you've got power of attorney on his finances,
yeah,
you can take it on, yes. But
so that's when the bank manager alarmed me and said he is not. He said, no, sir, he is not on this screen. He is not. So you need to make sure he signs the document very, very quickly. Yes. And after I've left, and I said, God, I thank you, because since we lived with him for that 6 months when we were staying with him. That's when I started taking over, just monitoring how his life and things and his finances. And I set up all the password and everything. So when he goes, I have to check, like sometimes I check his balance and everything. And at the same time, I said, God, just let me be honest, because everything that I'm doing at this moment is to help my spouse and to help my father-in-law. I don't want to end up betraying him, because money is tempting. But because I fast every day, I wasn't tempted with anything, honestly. And I just go in whenever he says go in to check my balance. I will just go in and just check him. And I thank God for that. And I thank my pastor as well, because my pastor always talks about taking money or taking something that does not belong to you is a curse. And I take that. For me, I take it very, very seriously. Or sometimes I used to go to the bank when I fill the pen, like when you enter the bank and you fill the details, I'll keep the pen all the time. It became a habit, but then my pastor said, no, when you fill out the bank details with the pen, leave it behind, it's not yours. So I took that kettle on, and I was like, let me. And when his son actually managed to take over, sometimes a family, they don't want to interfere, they trust. So they thought he was okay. But I was so glad when his older son, he said he's going to be power of attorney and just take control of everything. I was like, you can take his money and all his password and everything so I can be free. So he took over everything. So those are the things that sometimes the overcoming dissatisfaction in relationship, those are the things that you need to look out when it comes to family. Sometimes there are some people that might be in your life, and even family members as well, they'll betray you. So you just have to, I did a talk yesterday about my journey, and I was saying to the audience that through that journey of challenges in life, there were the only person that stood by me, it was strangers that I've never met, that entered my life, and they hold my hands, and those people became my family. And then it was my mom that hold my hands, because my mom, she's my mom. She hold my hands through those dark times. But everybody else, they were very, very judgmental. But then you have to be in a place where if you want to overcome the storms, this is something that I have learned the hard way of when somebody is judging you, you have to don't get into that story. You need to get out of the story of judgment. If the person is judging you, all you got to do is hold on to the truth that you know about yourself. Hold on to the truth that you know about your relationship, or even your spouse. If they are coming in a judgmental way, don't enter that story. Refuse to enter the story, because if you enter the story, there will be arguments in it. There will be disagreement. But for me, what I always do is I put my hands up. I always say, this is not my story, and I'm not going to enter it. And I always refuse. I enter the story that I know is the truth about me, or is the truth about my relationship, and that story, I enter it. And I always, if somebody judges me, I don't hold them I ask God for forgiveness straight away. I have to forgive them. And if I have to hang out with them, I'll hang out with them. But I always let them know what I think of them, that they are very judgmental. In that way, you don't have to pretend. You always have to tell the person that they don't have to be very, very judgmental, because you know this world, Carol Ann, like you had a relationship with your husband. You've had your children, and your children have been there for you. You've been there for them. So if you had focused on the negativity and focused on the things that don't serve you, do you think you would have been here today at Ngozi Talk Shows?
Probably not. No.
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 Your story will be different.
It would be different, and I wouldn't have learnt everything that I've learned and be in this place that I can now say the things that I'm saying. And certainly what you're saying about friends, that was a trap that I fell into because I didn't really know any better. I'd talk with a couple of friends who used to be on the phone, we'd be moaning and groaning and, you know, complaining. And I always sort of felt better afterwards. But there was a part of me that really wasn't feeling better. It's like we talked it out. But after a while, I started to realize I wasn't getting and nothing was changing because I wasn't talking to the person I really needed to talk to. And that's where it's recognizing the person that you really need to talk to. Because yes, a friend or family, they will hold you in that story that you're constantly talking about.
Yep.
But it is recognizing and being able to make a stand when something isn't working. If it recognizing what's your boundary and has someone stepped over it? If they have, can you bring it back? Can you draw that line? Because the more you let them step over the boundary, the more they'll step over it. And then the bigger, it'll get even more so. They'll take even more liberties. And so you drew the boundary with your father-in-law, yeah? That this friend of your father-in-law, it's not working. Something isn't right here. So you were able to, instead of just let it go by, you drew that boundary and you looked at his finances, you looked at what was going on and said, no, something needs to stop here. And so it is about being able to communicate in a way that moves things forward. And so recognize if you're talking to friends or even family and chewing it over and you're not getting anywhere because it does not serve you. It doesn't help you to actually mend the bridges.
Yeah. Put
together what's sort of falling apart and disconnecting. Because the next step, once you can communicate what's not working for you, it's about then exploring ways of rebuilding your relationship. You know, rebuilding the trust and even intimacy, because sometimes the intimacy goes, but was it really there? And I'm actually talking about not just physical intimacy. There's that soul connection. And I love what Rashida Rose says. Intimacy is not purely physical. It's the act of connecting with someone so deeply you feel like you can see into their soul. And for me, that was a connection that was never there with my ex-husband. I often used to look at him in the eyes, and I'd be sitting there and looking in the eyes, and he'd be going, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And he wasn't comfortable, and so it was. And I just felt like I was looking for that connection. I couldn't feel it, but I didn't know at the time. I now know because I can do that. I can look into people like I can feel that connection, but I didn't know then, and I certainly didn't know how to deal with it or explain what was going on for me that I wasn't comfortable with, I wasn't happy with, and why I was wanting to do that. So again, we go back to that first step, understanding yourself, understand what's going on, identifying it, identifying root causes, and then being able to communicate and say, well, look, I'm feeling a disconnect here. Not that you're disconnecting from me, you're the one that's putting up the blocks. I'm feeling a disconnect. I'm wanting to connect, and I don't feel that I can connect. And that's upsetting me, or it's making me feel sad or unhappy, and I'd like to do something about it. And it's creating that relationship that you both then want to do something about it. If the love is really there, if that both of you want to stay together, then you will do something about it. And it's about both of you committing to riding the waves. As Epicurus says, you don't develop courage by being happy in your relationship every day. You develop it by surviving difficult times and challenging adversity. So it's meeting it together. And then it's finding a way of rebuilding that trust, that intimacy, reignite what was there in the beginning. What drew you together in the beginning that's gone? Exploring it together. Is there something that you can now do that you've stopped doing, or something new that you can do together? And so explore that. And if there is that struggle to do that, what do we always say, Nomsa? Reach out.
Yeah.
Seek professional guidance, seek professional help. It's there to help you to grow, to reconnect. And they're not going to tell you what to do. Some people think, oh, they're going to tell me what to do, or it's only just for certain people. It's not for me. It's there for everybody. And because they've got a different listening, they can really listen at an impartial level. They can ask questions that can help you to go deeper, to really understand and bring you together and find that way of moving forward. So certainly seeking help, whether it's certain therapists, it's counseling, there's so many different things that you could do. And even with what I do, which is writing, my main thing is helping people to write their story. But we always find that we end up working on relationships because they're working on themselves. They're healing their own story, and relationships start shifting and healing as well. And communication that was falling apart in families or friends starts mending. They're actually able to talk in a healthy way rather than ignoring each other or having arguments. It's amazing. So just writing and going through that method that I take people through of unlocking the writer within has got a huge way of helping to heal a relationship. So there are lots of different avenues to explore to get professional help to help you along the way, and just create that happier future. But you need to take the steps. It's not a one thing quick fix.
No.
It's a constant ongoing challenge, and a commitment to making the best out of the relationship you possibly can.
Yeah, it's not a quick fix. And also the expectations. Sometimes we put expectations on the other people, like when we're dating somebody or when we are married to somebody, we expect them to give us happiness. And when that happiness is not fulfilled, then we start blaming them, but happiness is found within. And that's why we do it in Gossip Talk shows. They help you find your own voice, lead from within. And if you are somebody who is struggling to deal with storms, because storms come everywhere when it comes to life. And when I was going through storm that I have never experienced in life, I was talking about it yesterday, that it was when you actually realize, actually at that moment, I realized that I was never alone. Because God is always there, whatever your beliefs that might be, there's always a guiding angels that guide you through life, always. And there is always people that are willing to help you. Don't push them away. If you're going through a storm, anybody that offers the help, just stop, breathe, know that you're not alone, and allow them, as long as they're coming to you for the right reasons. There are people that enter your life, they're in your life, they just want gossip, so they can go and tell other people what's going on into your life. So we don't want those people. So you know, the people that gossip about things, you don't talk to them. When you're going through storm, you talk about those people that are there to lift you up, that wants to see you happy. So you speak to them, which is on Gospel Talk Shows. That's what we do. You can get in touch with us if you're going through a storm, or simple, if you just want to find your own voice and lead from within. Just get in touch, and we'll take it from there. Yeah. Anything else, Carol Ann, you want to add?
I like this, leave people with this last little quote, actually. A successful relationship requires falling in love many times, always with the same person. I thought, I like that idea. Yeah, you can fall out, but let's fall back in again. So keep falling in love. Keep falling in love. Keep finding those ways of falling in love. And you'll find the rewards. But certainly find your happiness. Put yourself first. Have self-care there. And keep putting that prayer up and asking for guidance, because the guidance comes. Yeah.
Any words of encouragement, Carol Ann, and please let the audience know where they can find you.
I think I've just given my words of encouragement. Is there anything else? Oh, yes, Steve Maraboli. The best way to love someone is not to change them, but instead help them reveal the greatest version of themselves. That was when I've had that there, and it's like I wanted to say that today, so thank you for asking that again. Yes, it's not about changing someone. Are you constantly wanting to change them, or they're wanting you trying to change yourself? It's about helping each of you to find and reveal the greatest version of yourselves. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook. I've got and on Instagram. And I have a Facebook group called Get Your Book Written. So do look me up, and just there's a way that writing can help you with your relationships. Something maybe you've never thought of before. But,
thank you so much. Thank you so much, Carol Ann. And for me, I will leave you with these few things. Embrace your vulnerability and trust is very, very important in a relationship, and cultivate empathy and compassion in that relationship, resilience, and also weathering the toughest storms in a relationship, and nurturing intimacy and connection is very, very important, and seek professional support. If your relationship is not going well, or if you feel that there are some improvement that needs to be improved in a relationship, don't demand perfection in your spouse. There are some people, you'll be surprised what people do. They demand themselves to be perfect. They demand the other person to be perfect, but those words don't exist. I always say to God, you know what, protect my children with their imperfection, protect me with my imperfection, because I'm not perfect. So I don't want anybody else to be perfect. When it comes to relationship, it is very, very important to work on your fears, expectations. Sometimes what we expect our spouse to become, they cannot become what we want them to become. So we have to look at ourselves is important. Sometimes I have clients, they come to me and I'm sitting there, I'm like, I don't understand. I'm like, God, I don't understand. I just sit there and they're judging themselves. You know, like when you go to court and instead of the judge be the ones that condemns you, they are sitting there and they condemn themselves. And I'm just laughing and I'm sitting there. I'm like, oh my God. And then when they are finished, I'm like, how does that make you feel when you actually condemn yourself? When you actually put yourself in that altar of judgment and judging yourself. And then I have to explain to them to say, listen, we're single because the time has not come, not because of what we've done wrong. We're single because we've not figured out what we want in life. That is a simple explanation, not because of what we've done wrong or because of what we are not or because of, it's just everything has a season. There are times myself where sometimes I want to do something and then I get something holds me back. Or sometimes I do research, I simply give up. And today I was doing another training and this guy, the system, the software that they have set up, and I'm looking at the software, I'm like, actually, my family can actually in Africa can actually log in. So that's why Carol Anna was doing the training. So I was like, my family can actually log in this software and just do the training and get certificate for free. The things that they will go and pay loads of money. That is the software that this company that I'm paying for now, where they have set up the whole system where if I need certificate, I just log in and do the training. I'm sitting actually, I just do the training at Hope Springs Eternal Introduction Agency, and the company, straight away, I did the training this morning and tried 7 times to get the score that is needed. In the end, I got the certificate and I was like, this could help my family. So, you know, sometimes those are the storms in a relationship where we face. It's a season. And then instead of condemning us, we have to think about what are we learning from these storms? What is it teaching us? Not the things that we've done or we haven't done. Looking back to our childhood is a critical component as well, because there could be things attached to so many problems that occur that comes into a relationship. So those are the things that we have to look into, that I leave you with, guys, without condemning, without putting yourself in judgment. It is the judge. When you make something wrong or you break the law, that it puts you in judgment. Oh God, no, you're putting yourself in judgment. No. So never ever put yourself in judgment. If you're somebody who's watching, life is not going well, or even if you believe that you contributed with mistakes, never ever make yourself wrong. Like Carol Ann says, just work on whatever has gone wrong and just move on from it, because life is precious. Relationship, you can sort it out. I don't argue in a relationship myself, and that destroyed my past relationship because my ex couldn't understand. He was like, Nomsa, you don't take life serious. But it's back to my childhood. I was raised by a man who explains when things goes wrong, he will explain. And he will explain to me that there are things that you have control in life, there are things that you don't. Those you don't have control, go pray about it. My grandmother would tell me the same thing. My mother would tell me the same thing. I have two older sisters. They all preach the same thing. So now I'm in a relationship. Finances are not going well. I ain't going to be angry with my spouse. I just pray. And then you'll be like, Nomsa, you don't seem to taking life serious. I'm like, you have no idea. When I'm praying, what I say to God, I'm like, that's me. I cannot be angry or I cannot take life very serious because I can't have things I don't have control over. Or if somebody's ill in the family, I will always put my smile in, not because I'm pretending. It's because I know God is in control, because I know God is my father-in-law is gone ill and is going through challenges. I fast for 90 days and I say, God, he's not dying. I need him out. He gets out of the hospital. But some people don't understand why he comes out. He comes out because I bind and I cast out. So those are the things that you have to, when you go through things, just put a prayer, or if you don't believe in prayer, meditate. I don't know the process of meditation, but you can meditate. It's the connection that you need within, the connection with your inner child, and your spirit man is inside of you. Your winning spirit man lives inside of you. When that thing dies, the body becomes a zombie. That means it cannot think anymore. It cannot function well. So you want to function well. Whenever you go through a storm, choose your fight. God bless everyone. Live with grace.